Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Munman Bhattacharya. Coming up in the next hour. South Africa's top official at the BRICS summit says the group of countries will be admitting new members at this meeting.
So we are very confident that Prime Minister Modi being in South Africa provides an excellent opportunity to further cement the historical, friendly and deep ties between our countries.
India's lunar mission Chandrayaan-3 closes in on a historic landing on the moon's south pole. ISRO to telecast the landing event live on Wednesday. Japan to start releasing treated radioactive water from the Fukushima nuclear plant into the ocean from the 24th of August. Indian chess grandmaster R. Praggnanandhaa stunts world number 3 Fabiano Caruana creates history by advancing to the final of the FIDE World Cup. Now the latest on DD India's BRICS coverage. The 15th BRICS summit is the first in-person gathering of the 5 emerging world economies in Johannesburg since the COVID-19 pandemic.
As the 15th leaders meeting of the BRICS summit kicks off here in Johannesburg, the grouping is focusing on developmental partnership with not just South Africa, which is the president this year and the host of this summit, but also by extension with the rest of the African continent. The other is reform of multilateral institutions and strengthening cooperation between the global south. To talk more about that, I have with me Dr. Anil Sooklal. He's the Sherpa of South Africa for the BRICS summit. Thank you, Dr. Sooklal, for speaking to us. What will be main on the agenda of the 15th BRICS summit?
In terms of the substance, of course, you've mentioned a very important point, the reform of the multilateral institutions. This is a standing item of BRICS leaders' agenda. As you know, the current multilateral global order is archaic, outdated and almost dysfunctional, including the Security Council that's almost paralyzed and cannot address issues of global peace and security effectively. Since its outset, BRICS has been calling for a reform of global governance architecture.
One concern that is of India and also of the world is cross-border terrorism. Would that be on the agenda?
Yes. Of course, terrorism is always on the agenda because it's an issue that BRICS leaders converge on and soundly condemn. So you will see the declaration address issues of terrorism and in all its facets and manifestations.
Much anticipation, as you say, over 40 leaders or heads of state and government of over 40 countries converge here in Johannesburg. Would there be the talk of expansion of BRICS? Do you think, does South Africa think the time for expansion of this grouping has come?
Well, expansion is definitely on the agenda. It is something that was already cited in the declaration of last year, where leaders asked us to start the discussion of expansion and to look at developing guiding principles, standards, criteria and procedure for expansion. South Africa has been seized with this matter. We've had several Sherpa meetings discussing expansion and we have completed our documentation around this issue.
Would the grouping be admitting new members at this summit?
Most likely. most likely. Leaders will make an announcement after the meeting.
Climate change is an issue which affects the world. Would that be prominently on the agenda?
Absolutely. It is prominently on the agenda. It's an issue that we are discussing and the devastation that it has on all of our peoples, our economies, our livelihoods, and what is it we can do collectively as BRICS to address the issues of climate change, climate action, and also to ensure that the global North commits and fulfill its commitments in terms of climate financing in assisting developing countries, both with finance and technology, to address issues of both mitigation and adaptation.
So clearly on the agenda would be these multiple issues that the South African Sherpa says, but at the heart of the summit would be strengthening and broadening the partnership between these emerging economies from what is referred to as the global south, and that is also a key priority of India's G20, of which the Leaders Summit will be held in New Delhi with just days away from the big summit of Johannesburg. With cameraman YK Loknath, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in Johannesburg.
So the 15th BRICS summit is kicking off in Johannesburg on Tuesday with more than 40 heads of states in attendance. The meeting, which has attracted a lot of attention, is hoping to expand the bloc's influence and push for a shift in geopolitics. More than 20 countries have applied to join the bloc, which makes up a quarter of the global economy. DD India's Isabel Nakiria reports from Johannesburg.
All BRICS heads of state except Russian President Vladimir Putin are here in Johannesburg for the summit this week. Russian President Putin is the target of an ICC arrest warrant and has opted to attend the summit virtually. He is represented by Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. They are converging at the late South African President Nelson Mandela's Johannesburg home, which has been converted into a luxury hotel. More than 30 heads of state, not members of BRICS, are also here, including leaders of emerging economies like Iran's Ibrahim Raisi and Indonesia's Joko Widodo. Discussions around expanding the members of the BRICS will be top of the table. In a televised address on Sunday, President Cyril Ramaphosa said South Africa will not be forced to side with any global powers and has a choice which country it partners with. He encouraged African countries to partner with the BRICS bloc to benefit from what he says are immense trade and investment opportunities. Attempts to de-dollarize the global economy from the dollar, which has dominated international trade, will be discussed. BRICS makes up a quarter of the global economy, representing a fifth of global trade. South Africa says it has a huge security operation up and running to make sure the summit passed off without incident. The country's policing minister says no one attending the meeting should be scared and that the South African security forces, in his words, are ready for the event. Isabel Nakiria in Johannesburg, reporting for DD India.
That's a primer on BRICS. Joining us now are two correspondents, Amritpal Singh as well as Leon from Johannesburg. Amrit, I'll come to you now. In that conversation that you had with the BRICS Sherpa, he did mention that most likely more member countries are likely to join this time around. We'll take that further with you. But before that, let me go across to Leon. Leon, how is it all shaping up for South Africa? How is it preparing for the BRICS summit? And who are some of the world leaders who have arrived there so far?
Well, it's very important to note that this is the first physical BRICS summit, at least since 2019, and definitely the weight of expectation has been quite high. South Africa's the summit chair has invited or sent out invitations to quite a number of leaders and nations to be part of this summit, which they believe will change quite a bit of the global politics. But then also importantly, though, is that security is well boosted within Sandton or Johannesburg, where this summit is taking place. there's also been a buzz within key societies. The Indian society here, we heard from them about the excitement and delight towards the attendance of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He's expected to come in here within the lunch hour. Other leaders that are already here are Inácio Lula da Silva from the Federal Republic of Brazil. China's leader Xi Jinping arrived Monday night. Then, of course, the hosts themselves are here. But also the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is in attendance, and other African leaders, Lazarus Chakwera of Malawi is also in attendance. So yes, definitely the weight of the summit this time around seems quite big.
Right, Leon, also South African BRICS Sherpa told our colleague Amritpal saying that the bloc will most likely admit new members this time around. Since BRICS works on consensus, are all member states on board, you think?
Well, during Sunday's address, South Africa's leader Cyril Ramaphosa emphasized the fact that the interests of BRIC partners, he would love for those to be extended to other partners and expand the composition of the group. And that therein, of course, is a shared sentiment with countries like China and Russia. They have expressed their desire to have a bigger group of the BRICS. However, there is a bit of skepticism coming in from Brazil and India just as much. Nonetheless, the decisions around the inclusion of other countries will entirely depend on the set standards and also the criteria. Those are issues that will be discussed through the summit here. But the inclusion of other countries, of course, depends on the consensus by the 5 major states that form the BRICS summit, and definitely that will be a decision that will be keenly looked out for, possibly at the end of the summit.
Yes, we'll wait for that one. Leon, could more trade in local currencies be a precursor to a BRICS currency in the years to come, or is it too far-fetched a proposition at this point in time?
Well, from the BRICS business forum that is going on just about now, some of the details that came through is that the trade between the BRICS countries has grown to about 7% or more on an annual rate over the past few years. That tells much about the kind of trading that goes on between the countries. Russia, China and Brazil already seem to have been taking that option of the local currency and trading in that way, partly to bypass, specifically for Russia, the kind of sanctions that have been imposed on it more recently. But then also the key issue here is that the BRICS would love to develop, want to develop a currency of their own, and that is a major discussion at this summit. It is an option that the new development bank, which was formed by the BRICS, has put its weight behind, but the deliberations, of course, fall between particular issues around the monetary policies of each country, the monetary regimes, and therein, of course, lies a bit of the lacuna towards the achievement of a common currency.
Leon reporting from Johannesburg. South African residents of Indian origin are filled with excitement and joy to welcome Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Let's hear from them.
Namaste Modi ji, my name is Rekha. I am from Bangalore, now living in South Africa for last 15 years. I came to South Africa as a geologist and now I am training as a psychologist. Regarding your work, it is really amazing, and especially in terms of digitization and safety for women, children and literally every citizen of India. Also, I'd like to welcome you to South Africa and hope you have a good stay here. Thank you for coming. Namaste.
Under his visionary leadership, India has witnessed an incredible digital revolution. His initiatives like Digital India have connected millions, bridging the urban-rural divide. Make in India campaign has ignited a homegrown manufacturing boom, creating jobs and making Bharat the fastest growing economy in the world. With Jan Dhan Yojana and Aadhaar, he has harnessed technology to provide financial inclusion and identity to millions who were previously excluded.
As you know, Shri Narendra Modi ji is a great leader and made every Indian proud. A warm welcome to Shri Narendra Modi ji to South Africa from Asa. Jai Ho Modi ji, Bolo Bharat Mata Ki Jai.
So the Indian diaspora in South Africa is very excited ahead of PM's arrival, and still to come on DD India News are Japan to start releasing treated radioactive water from the Fukushima nuclear plant into the Pacific Ocean from the 24th of August. Cambodia's newly elected parliament endorses Hun Manet as Prime Minister, completing a historic transfer of power. And Russia lashes out at Ukraine for the latest drone attacks. The airspace above Moscow was briefly closed and operations in 3 major airports suspended.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibility. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday 8 p.m. only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Munman Bhattacharya. All eyes are set on India's historic moon mission, the Chandrayaan-3, which is scheduled to land on the moon's south pole on Wednesday. Chandrayaan-3 is in its final moments of preparation to land. The Indian Space Research Organization will be broadcasting the landing event live from around 5:20 p.m. India time on the D-Day, which is the 23rd of August. Russia's Lunar 25 spacecraft crashed this weekend. It was also on its way to the moon. This means Chandrayaan-3 could become the first to land on the moon's dark side. This is the country's third lunar mission. India says it aims to study the moon's geology, water resources, and the potential for future human exploration. Tapas Bhattacharya joins us from Bengaluru. Tapas, how is ISRO gearing up for the much-awaited descent of Chandrayaan-3, the 15 minutes of terror on the moon tomorrow?
Well, they're excited because tomorrow it's going to be the D-Day at around 6:04. We are expecting that the mission will achieve its milestone. And what I can tell you is that the scientists in ISRO are examining, cross-examining and making sure that all systems are in place for that big time, big momentous occasion when India will, join a select group of countries. In fact, it will become the only country to land a mission in south pole of a moon, which might, in many ways, in many parlance, people are calling it the dark side of moon. So that is where this particular mission is going, and they are expecting that this is going to be a historic moment. Although they are keeping their finger crossed, they are also keeping in mind the situation where there might be a situation where this particular mission might be delayed. So they are keeping that particular time frame also in mind, and at the same time, so by any chance tomorrow it doesn't work, they are keeping it for 27th, and if that doesn't happen, they are also keeping a backup for after 14 days. So the backup have been created, but they are hoping, and they know, they are absolutely clear that they want the mission to achieve this particular milestone tomorrow, and everyone is looking forward to it. All the senior scientists, every single person who has been associated with this particular mission are keeping their finger crossed that India not just get into that select group of countries, Russia, China and United States to send a mission in moon, but become the first country to land a mission at the South Pole pole or the dark side of the moon. So that is one. There are also hectic thing that is going on. All work the scientists are also keeping in mind the other backups that are there, and they're keeping all the checks and possibilities, making sure that every system function clockwise precision, so that during that particular D-Day nothing goes the sideways. So though they are keeping those things in mind. Munmun.
Tapas Bhattacharya reporting from Bengaluru. It has been a dynamic journey for the Indian Space Research Organisation since its inception in 1969 to its first space mission and now its third lunar mission, that is Chandrayaan-3. India's space odyssey has truly come a long way.
History has proven that those who dare to imagine the impossible are the ones who break all the human limitations.
A 1,000-mile journey begins with one small step into the space. Indian Space Research Organization's ambitious journey started with a simple bicycle. The first ever rocket was transported to the launching pad on a bicycle. The journey of India's space mission was never easy, but the sheer determination of India's scientists was enough to overcome all the challenges. And India never looked back after the first launch. The ambitious and the rockets kept soaring high. Aryabhat, India's first satellite, was successfully launched in 1975. This spectacular journey was sprinkled with numerous success stories. More than 180 satellites launched in India's 48-year-long space journey. In 2008, India launched her most ambitious mission to date, Chandrayaan. It was a mission to map the moon, its chemicals, its minerals, and its geology. Chandrayaan and Indian scientists didn't disappoint. Chandrayaan-1 discovered water molecules on the lunar surface of the moon. After 11 years, Chandrayaan-2 was launched in 2019. Though India lost contact with the satellite at last stage, it gained valuable data from the mission, including new information about chromium, manganese and sodium. Now, Chandrayaan-3 is ready to propel India into a select league of nations. Those who have landed on the lunar surface, Chandrayaan-3 will demonstrate the capability of safe landing and roaming on the lunar surface. The launch of Chandrayaan-3 was keenly awaited. Its landing even more so. But the country's mission to explore space will continue. As Chandrayaan-3 blasted off from Sriharikota, 1 billion hearts prayed for its success. It's a mission the whole world has been watching. India's space program, now a global leader.
And in some international news, Thailand's Pheu Thai party unveiled its 11-party alliance that will try to form a coalition this week. The alliance comprises 314 lawmakers and some military-linked competitors, but excludes the anti-establishment Move Forward party. Pheu Thai Coalition Party, which holds 314 out of 500 seats in parliament, announced Sretha Thavisin, a 60-year-old business mogul, as its prime ministerial candidate. Thailand's parliament is likely to vote on Tuesday on Thavisin's prime ministerial bid. Thailand's fugitive ex-prime minister returned after a 17-year-long exile on Tuesday. The return comes as his party seemingly seeks to form a new government with some of his biggest rivals. The former Thai PM Thaksin Shinawatra went into self-imposed exile in 2008, facing a raft of corruption charges following a military coup. According to a statement by the Supreme Court, he will serve a total of 8 years in prison. Voting begins in Zimbabwe on Wednesday as the citizens seek to escape the country's economic turmoil. The issue has become a central theme in the election scheduled for Wednesday. The country's main opposition party, the Citizens Coalition for Change, held its final rally on Monday in the country's capital, Harare. Notably, 1/6 of the registered electorate are first-time voters. Cambodia has a new Prime Minister for the first time in nearly 4 decades. The newly elected Parliament endorsed Military General Hun Manet as Prime Minister on Tuesday. The new Prime Minister of Cambodia, Hun Manet, is the son of older Prime Minister Hun Sen. Mr. Hun Sr. became Prime Minister in 1985 and his time in office was controversial. Critics say he oversaw a rise in corruption, deforestation and violations of human rights. So will the son be like the father? Here's Andrew Wood in Hong Kong.
Hun Manet is 45. He spent most of his career in the military, particularly the Cambodian Air Force. He was the first Cambodian to graduate from West Point, the very prestigious military academy in the United States. He then went on to New York University, where he did a master's degree in economics, and then went on to Bristol University in the UK, where he did a PhD in economics. So he's very well educated. Obviously, he's very well connected, given that his father is Hun Sen. Also, he's married to a daughter of a former Secretary of Labour in Cambodia too. What we don't know about him is how he is going to rule. Will he be more of a strongman like his father, who spent 4 decades in control as Prime Minister in Cambodia? Or will he want to open up Cambodia and engage with critics of Cambodia in the West and make the place more democratic? Andrew Wood in Hong Kong, reporting for DD India.
Despite widespread criticism and international concern, the Japanese government has announced its decision to discharge radioactive water from the Fukushima nuclear power plant from Thursday. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has emphasized the government's commitment to safeguarding the fishing industry.
2015, the Japanese government and the Fukushima nuclear plant operators reached an agreement with local and national fishing stakeholders. The pact was to ensure Japan wouldn't proceed with wastewater disposal without any consultations. However, due to a significant buildup of water since the 2011 earthquake and tsunami, the government has had no other choice.
TEPCO is asked to swiftly prepare to start the water discharge in accordance with the plan approved by the Nuclear Regulation Authority. As for the specific release date, it's expected to be August 24, weather and sea conditions permitting.
Local Fukushima supermarket owners and fishermen are united against the release of the treated radioactive water. Their concern centers on potential damage to seafood quality that could impact sales and livelihoods.
They say it will be safe when it is diluted, but they haven't conducted any scientific research regarding what would happen as a result of discharging this much of the water over 30 years. I think it's unscientific at best to release it here, and it is sure to hurt sales of fish. That's why I am strongly against it. I don't want them to do it.
There is fierce opposition against this move, both regionally and globally. The Chinese government has voiced its concern, and in South Korea there is public outcry, with many there objecting the planned discharge.
Chris Gilbert now joins us from Tokyo. Chris, the process of release of the treated radioactive water starts on Thursday, but will it take several years before all such water is released, and how have Japan's neighbors reacted to this decision?
Well, yeah, more than several years. It's going to take decades, 30 to 40 years, and the reason for that is that even though the treatment facility, which is effectively cleaning or treating this water of all the radionuclides that are in it, it can't take out one called tritium. This chemical, this isotope, has the same properties as water. It cannot be extracted from the water. And so what they need to do, the solution that they've come up with, is to use enormous volumes of seawater to dilute it. And this process is already underway. Even though the discharge begins in 2 days from now, they are already filling the tanks and the chambers and the shafts of the discharge facility with the first batch of water that is meant to be going out into the ocean on Thursday, to measure it for the levels of tritium, to make sure it's safe and ready to go. And what is going to happen after this is going to be a 17-day phase to make sure that everything is running properly. And from there, it is going to take another 30 years to slowly dribble this water into the environment to reduce the impact on the marine bioorganisms and the environment as much as possible. In terms of the reaction, well, there has been a very strong reaction already from several groups, including the Pacific Island Forum, which has wanted Japan to explore more options other than an ocean discharge, from South Korea, and of course from China as well, which has been the most vocal opponent.
We'll leave it at that. Chris reporting from Tokyo. Time for us to take another breather. Still to come on DD India News Hour, Gandhi Mandela Centre of Specialization for Artisan Skills in South Africa's capital Pretoria stands out as a model of development cooperation between India and South Africa. US President Joe Biden visits Hawaii's Maui Island to see the aftermath of wildfires and pledges long-term federal support. Human Rights Watch report accuses Saudi Arabian guards of killing hundreds of Ethiopian migrants trying to cross the kingdom through Yemen.
Always welcoming. The vibe of Punjab is larger than life. Warm up to grandeur that's beyond compare. And history that's dotted with tales of bravery. Smiling soul of India, where music, art, cuisine and culture comes together to create an unforgettable impression. Punjab is all set to win your hearts with its unique and colorful extravaganza.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Munman Bhattacharya. Let's quickly recap our top stories. South Africa's top official at the BRICS summit says the group of countries will be admitting new members at this meeting as Prime Minister is en route to Johannesburg for the summit. India's lunar mission Chandrayaan-3 closes in on a historic landing on the moon. The Indian Space Agency plans to broadcast the landing event live on Wednesday. And India's chess champion Praggnanandhaa stuns world number 3 Fabiano Caruana by advancing to the final of the FIDE World Cup Chess Tournament in Azerbaijan. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is en route to South Africa for the 15th BRICS Summit. He arrives in Johannesburg later today. South Africa is currently the chair of BRICS. The theme for this year's summit is BRICS in Africa, Partnership for Mutually Accelerated Growth, Sustainable Development and Inclusive Multilateralism. This is the first in-person summit since the COVID-19 pandemic struck in 2019. There is talk of expansion of the grouping as well, and there's also talk of trade in local currencies between the 5 countries. And South African BRICS Sherpa has said that BRICS will most likely admit new member countries at this summit. Joining us now for Perspective is Ambassador Rahul Chabra, former Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. Ambassador Chabra, such a pleasure to have you on DD India. How do the 5 BRICS countries and new entrants stand to gain if BRICS were to add new members? There are hints that new entry of members will happen this time around.
Good afternoon, Munmun. Thank you for having me on your show. The 2 parts to this question. Firstly, how BRICS will gain. As of now, even though BRICS itself represents 40% of global population, 25% of global GDP, all those big figures, but still it is only 5 countries. So if BRICS gets additional members, obviously the heft of BRICS goes up. when it speaks on behalf of those additional or full number of countries, which would be much more powerful voice than it is even today. How the individual members will benefit is that they will, each one when they join, will be able to put across their viewpoint in a much more, with much more force. When they speak, when their issues come up and BRICS puts it forward, it obviously carries that much more weight, that it already has the support of a large and a certain section of countries that are influential and important countries. So they will gain by being part of that grouping, in addition to, of course, being able to sort of trade with them, get to know them closer in terms of contacts, sort of move their agendas forward. So there will be gain on both sides, and huge gain.
Ambassador, what is the road ahead
But
for BRICS currency?
just in case, I don't know if I can get an additional few seconds, just to mention that India is open to this sort of new countries coming in, only that we wanted to be more structured, sort of we have a clear-cut criteria so that, it's not an haphazard sort of expansion. So that we have a positive intent, we have an open mind, we're ready to accept them, but to be done in a structured manner.
Absolutely, there are modalities that need to be followed ahead of any expansion. What is the road ahead for a BRICS currency? Because there's a lot of focus on trading more in local currencies, but it seems that a BRICS currency could be something that could come down the road many years later, perhaps. What do you think?
Many years later. It's really a long way off. For a BRICS currency to come in, I mean, the latest, the new currency that we have seen over the last few decades has been the euro that came in. And you've seen the sort of integration that the EU already has. And only then they were able to sort of propose the euro. So a BRICS currency coming in is much later. Initially, it'll have to be actually trade in national currencies, which is just beginning now. So it has already begun. So that will need to sort of pick up steam. Much more of it will have to take place. So and all these currencies will have to be sort of convertible on the capital account, which today the rupee is not. Even some of the other currencies are probably not. So there'll have to be a lot more integration and political integration also. Sort of you'll have to have your positions coinciding quite a bit. Otherwise, your fiscal and monetary, once you get a common currency, it sort of ties you down to in terms of a fiscal and a monetary policy response also to crisis or to normal day-to-day developments. So that will be way down the road. We'll first have to see how far we can push trading in national currencies. And then only talk about
Ambassador, if I may come in here, we heard from the Prime Minister as far as his departure statement is concerned. He spoke about how this could be a forum for discussing various issues that concern the Global South. That's also a continuing focus in the G20. So do you think that what happens there will also inject momentum into the G20 Leaders Summit in September in New Delhi?
Definitely, because Prime Minister and the delegation will get a good feel of what countries of the Global South are thinking about. Prime Minister already had a Voice of Global South, you would recollect, a few months back, summit, where over 120 countries participated. It was, of course, a virtual summit. But now they'll get a first-hand sort of face-to-face feeling of what the Global South, because this is going to be, they're going to be not only the BRICS countries, as you're aware, as you mentioned, Africa is going to be very well represented there, and maybe some other countries also as guest countries. So all this will sort of feed into the decision making, and especially since G20 is just a few weeks away. So it will really give a good sense of what these countries are looking out for, what their concerns are, and what they would like us to focus on, which we definitely as host and chair of the G20 will be able to deliver once we have that feedback.
We'll leave it at that, Ambassador. Thank you for your inputs. So that was Ambassador Chhabra giving us a perspective on the 15th BRICS Summit. After arrival of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, his first program will be attending the BRICS Business Forum, which will also witness his address. Delegates from India are participating in the forum. They say the Indian businesses are giving a massive push to the South African economy. They term the forum as an opportunity to collaborate more on several areas.
Basically, I am a chemical engineer and I build technologies and various other processes for chemical industry. We are doing it in India. Now we thought of extending it in South Africa. So after coming here, we understood that there are lots of natural resources here, and they definitely need various technologies to build great businesses. I believe there will be a two-way exchange between South Africa and India, where we provide quite good technologies to this region to make their business prominent. And I believe we are very much positive about this, that we will extend our business directly from India to South Africa. We see people asking all the time about India's work, Indian people, Indian cultures. Some are trying to talk to in Hindi, so we can feel that magic here.
Namaste, I am basically a textile engineer, and I work almost 27 years in Indonesia, and right now here in South Africa, representing the BRICS delegation, and thanks to our beloved Prime Minister Modi ji for arranging all this, giving this opportunity.
We are bringing the new investor to invest here to make the joint ventures in a textile industry. And we are very much happy, and many of our investors are very much interested to invest in South Africa.
South African delegate Anandhaa Mafalala has said that BRICS partnership helps bring technology from India, which boosts businesses in the country.
We are very excited that through the BRICS relationship in South Africa, we have managed to find a partner that brings paint technology from India. And in South Africa, we have the raw material, which is fly ash and other materials that we now gonna partner to manufacture green paint with them. The BRICS relationship has brought an advantage to us as a business, and also I think we can grow through this relationship with our Indian partners.
Some more international news now. In a latest Human Rights Watch report, the organization has revealed, in fact, that Saudi Arabian security forces had shot hundreds of Ethiopian migrants trying to cross the Saudi-Yemen border. In the 73-page report, the rights group claims Saudi guards used explosive weapons and shot some migrants at close range.
In visuals verified by Human Rights Watch, migrants can be seen carrying injured women and children to safety near the Yemeni-Saudi border. According to the report, Saudi guards have killed hundreds of Ethiopian migrants, including women and children. They have been trying to enter Saudi Arabia through Yemen. The report is a compilation of testimonies from 38 Ethiopians who tried to cross the border between March 2022 and June 2023.
We were 45 in number and only 3 survived. Of that I'm sure. I called them all and managed to speak to 3 of them. The rest are unreachable. The rest only God knows what happened to them. They were firing non-stop and I thought the sky was falling on me. I cannot describe how shocking the sound was. Bullets came from our back and front.
The rights group has outlined the mass murder as widespread and systematic. It says the killings are continuing.
At Human Rights Watch, we've been documenting killings at the border by Saudi border guards of migrants and asylum seekers since 2014. But these were generally irregular. What we've seen is a dramatic escalation in the last few years. And we're talking about numerous incidents. I mean, from the interviewees that I spoke to, we documented 28 explosive weapons incidents.
Following the release of the report, a Saudi government source denied the claims, saying they were unfounded and not based on reliable sources. According to the United Nations, an estimated 750,000 Ethiopians are in Saudi Arabia, many who have fled economic hardship.
In the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, Russia has once again accused Ukraine of drone attacks on Tuesday. Russian officials claim to have brought down 2 Ukrainian drones near Moscow and 2 drones over the Bryansk region that borders Ukraine. No casualties were reported. However, the airspace above Moscow was briefly closed and operations in 3 major airports suspended. Russian military also claimed the debris from the drones caused damage to a high-rise residential building and smashed windscreens of cars parked below. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky visited Greece on Monday, where he met with the Greek Prime Minister. The Greek Prime Minister invited Zelensky for a Balkan summit, which was also attended by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President Charles Michel. This meeting comes on the sidelines of Greece's strong support for Ukraine amidst the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Greece has donated both humanitarian and defense aid to Ukraine in its battle against Russia. During the summit, Ukraine's president also informed the media that Greece will train Ukrainian pilots to buy and fly F-16s.
We have important results for aviation coalition. Greece will participate in training of our pilots for F-16. I'm grateful for this proposal and thank you and your team for being ready to help us more in defending our freedom.
US President Joe Biden is in Hawaii visiting parts of the island state hit by deadly wildfires. More than 100 people have died and 800 are still missing. Biden is being criticized for not visiting the island earlier. DD India's Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
It's been 2 weeks since wildfires devastated parts of Hawaii. And on Tuesday, US President Joe Biden touched down on the island to visit along with the First Lady Jill Biden. He's been criticized, though, for not getting there fast enough. There may at the moment be more than 1,000 federal emergency responders, but there's also some concern over funding to help people on the island. The head of the Federal Emergency Agency said on Sunday, there's so much demand for money from the National Disaster Relief Fund that some causes may have to be delayed until next year. That, as data comes out saying the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration has 15 weather-related or climate disaster events on their books in the US, even before the Hawaii disaster happened on August 8th this year. Each of those has cost $1 billion in damage. Hawaii is likely to cost even more. We're looking at an estimated $6 billion in damage. And that's even only as the hurricane season gets started here. At the moment, we're already seeing the West Coast hit by floods from Tropical Storm Hillary, and that has really impacted large parts of Southern California. There are also calls for President Biden to declare a climate state of emergency. Some politicians here saying when you've got more than 100 people who've died, more than 800 missing, and entire towns devastated, then if that isn't a climate emergency in Hawaii, then what is? If Biden did call it a climate emergency, it could allow Congress to invoke emergency powers, potentially for policy change, potentially to slow down greenhouse gas emissions, have large-scale transport changes, potentially more impactful than we've had before in the US. But with many things here, it is a political risk. Many don't call this climate change. Many favour continuing to use oil and gas despite the carbon pollution from it. Now, the White House is saying that Biden has effectively been calling this a climate emergency for some time, and that they and Biden are taking all the necessary action needed for people in Hawaii. Caroline Malone in Washington for DD India.
Not just that, millions of people are suffering from climate change as the Western Canadian province were under air quality warnings due to wildfires. The amount of land burnt is resulting in increase in temperatures. According to officials, the entire province was covered by smoke and has forced around 35,000 people to evacuate over the past 4 days. US President Joe Biden praised the remarkable resiliency of the people of Maui and said that America would stand by them for as long as it takes.
Today is burned, but it's still standing. The trees survived for a reason. I believe it's a very powerful symbol of what we can and will do to get through this crisis. And for as long as it takes, we're going to be with you. The whole country will be with you. We're going to rebuild the way the people of Maui want it.
Tropical storm Hillary has brought record-breaking rainfall to Southern California. The aftermath of Hillary has left behind a trail of disaster as people begin to clear the debris around their homes. According to officials, no further fatalities or significant injuries have been reported. And let's now take take a look at some other stories making news from around the world. Donald Trump will face a $200,000 bond and has been ordered not to send threatening social media messages. This is according to a court filing on Monday. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has visited flood-damaged areas in the port city of Nampo. During his trip on Tuesday, he criticized top officials for their handling of the situation. Experts fear the flooding of farmland could create food shortages in the country. Time now for all the business action. Global ratings agency S&P has downgraded its outlook for several US banks. It warns that funding issues and lower profitability will likely put the sector's credit strength to the test. The decision comes weeks after Moody's rattled financial stocks by also downgrading a slew of US banks. According to S&P Global, a steep rise in interest rates is weighing on the funding and liquidity of many US banks. Mark Zuckerberg's Meta platform is planning to roll out the web version of its microblogging app Threads. It's hoping to gain a competitive advantage over Elon Musk's X. While no specific date has been announced yet, reports suggest the launch could happen as early as this week. Zuckerberg launched Threads on the 5th of July as a direct competition to X that was formerly called Twitter. The social media platform gained over 100 million users in just 5 days of its launch. Still to come on DD India News Hour, Indian chess champion Praggnanandhaa stuns world number 3 Fabiano Caruana and is headed to the Chess World Cup final. And a penalty from captain Martin Odegaard gives 10-man Arsenal a battling Premier League victory over Crystal Palace. Also, mountain bikers show off their skills in Germany. We'll tell you how.
The gateway to Northeast India welcomes you to the land of untouched natural beauty and diverse history.
Welcome to Kumarakom, Kerala, God's own country.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Anand Bhattacharya. Time now for all the sporting action with my colleague Deepika, who joins us with all the action there.
Absolutely, Munmun. We are tracking the biggest update from the world of chess. So let's tell you what exactly is happening. So Indian chess prodigy R. Praggnanandhaa is all set to face world champion Magnus Carlsen today at the ongoing FIDE Chess World Cup. Our next report brings you a pre-match preview.
In a remarkable display of skill and determination, Indian Grandmaster R. Praggnanandhaa secured a stunning victory over world number 3 Fabiano Caruana with a score of 3.5 to 2.5 in the tiebreaker round of the FIDE World Cup Chess Tournament held in Baku, Azerbaijan on Monday. With this sensational victory, Praggnanandhaa attains the distinction of being the third youngest player in history, following the footsteps of the legendary Bobby Fischer and Magnus Carlsen to qualify for the candidates tournament. This thrilling encounter of mental prowess saw Praggnanandhaa triumph over his opponent. Now, Praggnanandhaa is set to face off against Norway's Carlsen in the final, marking a significant achievement in his chess career. Chess legend and 5-time world champion Viswanathan Anand heaped praise on Praggnanandhaa and was awestruck by his rich vein of form in Chess World Cup. He wrote on X, formerly known as Twitter, "Prag goes through to the final. He beat Fabiano Caruana in the tie-break and will face Magnus Carlsen now. What a performance!" By becoming only the second Indian after Anand to reach the semi-finals of the World Cup, Praggnanandhaa booked a spot in the candidates event in 2024 to determine the challenger to Ding Liren. The top 3 finishers in the tournament qualify for the candidates event in 2024 to determine the challenger to current world champion Liren of China.
Earlier, in an exclusive interview with DD India, R. Praggnanandhaa expressed his wish to defeat Magnus Carlsen in an over-the-board game. DD India's Suchitra Bharadwaj spoke to Prag when he defeated Carlsen earlier in an online rapid game event the same day last year.
So I'm sure it is on every chess player's bucket list to defeat Magnus Carlsen. So was it on your bucket list? And how happy are you with this achievement of, finally defeating Magnus Carlsen in a game?
Yeah, it of course feels good, but it's still a rapid game, yeah. So I would like to, play him in an over-the-board game and hopefully one day defeat him. That will be one of the things that I would like to do.
In soccer, a penalty from captain Martin Odegaard gave 10-man Arsenal a battling Premier League victory at Crystal Palace. Mikel Arteta's side looked comfortable to beat Crystal Palace by 1-0. Arsenal joined Brighton and Manchester City on 6 points from 2 games, while Palace failed to build on their opening day victory at Sheffield United. Global mountain biking talents have converged at the Swatch 9's mountain bike event at Green Hill Bike Park in Germany. Riders showcased unprecedented skills on the course. This unique event has once again created the space to elevate the sport to new heights, unfolding new tricks during a week-long session.
Biking skills there, I thought, but there should be a statutory warning for people not to try it at leisure.
Absolutely. And a big day today indeed for India, because in a short while from now, Praggnanandhaa will be action for the first time, facing the world champion in the final stage. Munmun, with this, it's a wrap here in Sports Updates. Back to you.
Thanks, Deepika. So that's all then in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, on X, formerly known as Twitter. You know that by now, and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Anil Bhattacharya from all of us, in fact, in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar. Bye.